The year was 1907, and in a quiet Midwestern town that seemed untouched by the rush of modern progress, two men were hard at work on machines that would one day challenge the very way people lived. Life in this town moved slowly, almost lazily, as if time itself had chosen to walk rather than run. Horses pulled wagons filled with hay through dusty roads, their hooves striking against cobblestones with steady rhythm. Farmers rose before dawn, their backs bent under the weight of years, guiding iron plows that cut reluctantly through hardened soil. Shopkeepers leaned against counters, waiting for the trickle of customers who came to purchase simple goods, flour, fabric, lamp oil, items that hadn't changed for generations. Children played barefoot in the dirt, their laughter echoing off wooden porches, chasing hoops or drawing pictures with sticks. To the people of this town, life seemed complete. What was good enough for their fathers and grandfathers was surely good enough for them. Yet in the corners of this sleepy place, hidden from the noise of tradition, two workshops burned late into the night. One belonged to Henry, the perfectionist, whose polished machines shone like mirrors. The other belonged to Samuel, the dreamer, whose cluttered benches overflowed with parts, grease, and half-finished designs. Neither man knew it, but within their walls the future was being built. Henry was a man of steel-like discipline, almost mechanical in his habits. He stood tall, his narrow face sharp with angles, his eyes piercing and cold, always scanning for flaws invisible to others. His workshop was a temple of order. Every tool had its place. Wrenches aligned like soldiers in formation, screws sorted in labeled jars, gears stacked in neat towers that gleamed under the oil lamps. Before beginning work each day, Henry would step back, survey the spotless rows, and nod with silent pride. His machine was a reflection of himself, flawless, efficient, and beautiful. Its polished metal caught the sunlight like a jewel, its leather seats smelled of craftsmanship, its engine purred with the quiet authority of power contained. Yet Henry's obsession with perfection blinded him. He believed that excellence needed no explanation, that his creation would speak so loudly through its beauty and precision that words, persuasion, and human connection were irrelevant. For Henry, persuasion was beneath him. The world would bow to greatness simply because it was great. He never asked himself the most dangerous question a creator can ignore: do people actually care? Samuel was nothing like Henry. His workshop was chaos, bolts rolling underfoot, oil stains splattered on the floor, half-built models scattered across tables. It looked less like the lair of an inventor and more like a battlefield where ideas clashed endlessly. But Samuel didn't care about order. He cared about people. His neighbors often wandered into his shop, not to marvel at polished machines, but to hear his laughter, share stories, or watch him bring some wild idea to life. Children adored him because he always stopped to explain his gadgets in simple words, letting them crank a lever or turn a wheel, their eyes sparkling with wonder. His machine was far from perfect. Its paint chipped easily, the seats leaned a little to one side, and the engine sometimes coughed and sputtered before roaring to life. Yet Samuel had something Henry would never possess: the ability to step into another person's shoes. He listened to farmers complain about their aching backs after endless hours of plowing. He nodded when merchants cursed about horses that grew lame in the mud. He sympathized with young people who dreamed of escaping the limits of small-town life. To Samuel, his machine wasn't just metal and gears. It was an answer to their struggles, a vision of freedom. The summer sun hung high when the two men unveiled their inventions in the town square. People gathered in clusters, the air buzzing with curiosity and skepticism. Old men leaned on canes, muttering that nothing would ever replace the horse. Mothers fanned themselves, holding restless children close, while farmers stood with arms folded, their brows furrowed, waiting to see if this was all just foolishness. The mayor, with a mustache as thick as a broom and a voice thin as paper, made a short speech about innovation, though his tone betrayed disbelief. Henry was first. With a dramatic flourish, he pulled the canvas off his machine. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The sunlight bounced off gleaming panels, every curve of the machine as perfect as if sculpted by an artist. It looked like something from another world, a creation too fine for a dusty village. Henry folded his arms, chest swelling with pride. He said nothing, for in his mind, words would only weaken the power of perfection. Let them admire. Let them kneel before excellence. But as the crowd murmured, their words revealed doubt. "Beautiful, yes, but can it pull a plow?" whispered a farmer. "Fine looking, but how many crates of flour would it carry?" said a merchant. Their admiration was polite, shallow, and uncertain. Henry smiled tightly, but inside his confidence wavered. Samuel's turn came next. His machine rattled awkwardly as he rolled it forward, its uneven paint peeling, its gears squealing like a tired mule. A few boys laughed. Henry smirked, sure that comparison would destroy his rival. But Samuel climbed onto the driver's seat, his face glowing with excitement. He didn't boast about horsepower or polished parts. Instead, he looked at the farmers and said, "Imagine coming home without your back breaking after a long day. Imagine plowing in half the time and still having energy to play with your children." The farmers leaned closer. He turned to the merchants. "Imagine reaching the next town in hours, not days. No sick horses, no broken wagons, just you and your goods moving smoothly down the road." They exchanged thoughtful looks. Then Samuel turned to the restless young men at the back. "Imagine exploring beyond the horizon. Imagine seeing cities, rivers, mountains you've only heard about. This machine can take you there. This is freedom." His words cut deeper than any polished service could. He was not selling a machine. He was selling the audience their own dreams. The mood shifted. The laughter quieted, replaced with murmurs of excitement. Farmers imagined aching muscles spared, merchants imagined profits doubled, and the restless youth saw the road stretching far beyond the edge of town. Samuel's voice carried warmth and conviction, painting pictures in their minds so vivid they could almost feel them. He wasn't asking them to admire his invention, he was inviting them into a new life. And though his machine sputtered, though it looked imperfect beside Henry's shining marvel, it now carried a new weight. It was theirs. When Samuel finished speaking, silence hung for a breath, then broke into applause. Some clapped timidly, others loudly, but soon the square thundered with approval. People crowded around, asking questions, touching the machine, imagining themselves behind its wheel. Henry's machine, flawless though it was, stood gleaming and lonely, admired but unloved. Samuel's rattling contraption, imperfect though it was, had won their hearts. From that day forward, the difference between the two men became impossible to ignore. Samuel's workshop, once cluttered and quiet, grew busier by the hour. Farmers lined up to ask when they could purchase one of his machines. Merchants offered deposits in advance, eager to gain an advantage over competitors. Young men who had never cared about machines before begged Samuel to teach them how to drive. Laughter and energy filled his shop, and though his clothes grew more stained, his face never stopped glowing with joy. Across town, Henry's workshop grew still. His machine sat in neat rows, polished daily, yet untouched, unsold, gathering dust under the oil lamps. He refused to lower himself to persuasion, refusing to stoop to the level of salesmanship. "If they cannot see the brilliance before their eyes, they do not deserve it," he muttered bitterly. But inside, he wrestled with a truth too painful to admit, that his flaw was not in his machine, but in his failure to touch human hearts. Each day, as Samuel's name spread, Henry's pride grew heavier, like chains pulling him into silence. He had built perfection, but Samuel had built desire. And in the battle between perfection and desire, desire always wins. Weeks turned into months, and the town changed in ways no one could have predicted. At first, some mocked Samuel's machine, calling it noisy and awkward. Yet when they saw neighbors returning from fields with less fatigue, when they watched merchants return earlier and richer, envy blossomed. Slowly, laughter turned to respect, and respect turned to demand. The streets that once echoed with the clop of horses now rattled with the steady chugging of Samuel's vehicles. People traveled faster, farther, freer. The town's economy grew, its reputation spread, and Samuel became not just an inventor, but a symbol of progress. His workshop expanded, apprentices crowded in, and he poured his earnings back into improvements. His empire grew not because of flawless design, but because he had given people something greater than machinery: hope. Henry, meanwhile, remained in this quiet shop, polishing lifeless machines. The sound of progress was everywhere, except within his walls. As years passed, Samuel's influence spread beyond his town. His machines reached nearby cities, then neighboring states. Traders spoke of him in markets. Travelers whispered his name in inns. He became a figure of respect, not only for his invention, but for the way he understood people better than anyone else. His story carried a lesson that echoed beyond mechanics. Success is not born from perfection alone, but from connection, persuasion, and vision. Henry faded into obscurity. His name was remembered only as a cautionary tale, the man who built flawless machines no one wanted. His pride had been his prison, his refusal to understand others his downfall. But Samuel, whose workshop once rattled with chaos and laughter, left a legacy that shaped generations. And so, the lesson is timeless. People do not buy perfection, they buy improvement in their own lives. They do not care for your brilliance until you show them how it can serve their needs, ease their burdens, or fulfill their dreams. Henry built a machine. Samuel built a future. Henry polished gears. Samuel polished words. Henry waited for admiration. Samuel aroused eager want. And in the end, history remembers not the man who demanded recognition, but the man who gave others a vision of themselves transformed. That is the essence of Dale Carnegie's third great principle. He who can arouse in others an eager want has the whole world with him. He who cannot walks a lonely way.